Welcome to the Scoop World Order. Hope you guys had a great Labor Day. We're on to Tuesday now. The team is back at it. Nice bloody Tuesday practice, nice and physical today. Chip Kelly took the mic. Ryan Day took the mic. A lot of meat on the bone. A lot of things that can get fixed are going to get fixed. Really excited about that. I think that we've got a really good team on our hands, and they're going to get a lot better. With that being said, if you guys enjoy this content, please leave us a like, click subscribe. Also, click that little alert bell. Again, we have a huge growth spurt that we've been on, huge month, and there's a lot of crazy Michigan stuff going on that we're going to get into right now with Nevada. Jim Harbaugh is as flippant as always. He says that the NCAA stole money from kids and had $1 billion verdict against them. And again, I don't know if that has anything to do with cheating and stealing signs. And you've got a little bit of stuff on some of their insubordination, some of their non-cooperation tactics. What are some of the things that you've heard in the last day or so regarding the Michigan stuff? Because it's bubbling right now. And again, I don't know what Jim Harbaugh's trying to gain by thumbing his nose at the NCAA, but he is. I mean, obviously, he really can't be affected by them anymore, but his beloved Michigan Wolverines can be. But what are you hearing right now?
Well, first to start with the Harbaugh stuff. I mean, Harbaugh just continues to rail on the NCAA, which, again, that may make him feel great. He may feel insulated because he's in San Diego and he's off to the NFL, but it is not good for Michigan what he's doing, because in the NCAA's eyes, there is no differentiation between Jim Harbaugh and the institution of Michigan. Even though Jim Harbaugh is gone, it makes them want to hit Michigan even harder. And this is coming from the NCAA. Like this stuff is not lost on them. So when Jim Harbaugh talks about how irrelevant they are, how they have no teeth, they have no authority, they have no power, it just ticks them off. Because you've got to remember, at the end of the day, the NCAA is just people. They're people like you, they're people like me, they're people like the listeners. And if somebody just keeps telling you how irrelevant you are, how you have no power, how you have no authority, how you have no relevance, then what do you want to do? You want to show them that you have relevance, that you have power, that you have authority. So Jim Harbaugh is not doing Michigan any favors by saying, and that is not a guess. That is not some weird conspiracy theory on the internet or something like that. Jim Harbaugh is not helping out Michigan, and I believe with everything with Harbaugh is as nutty as he is and as crazy as he is, and we've talked about his idiosyncrasies. Everything is for a reason, and he says everything for a reason. And I truly, from the bottom of my heart, believe that Harbaugh knows that saying stuff like this is not helpful to Michigan, and he doesn't care. He would like to see Michigan go down on this thing, and he doesn't care who gets hurt because he knows it's not going to be him. And nothing will change my mind, because Harbaugh's not dumb. The old expression about crazy like a fox or whatever it is, that's Harbaugh. Harbaugh's not a dumb guy. He's not a stupid guy. Nothing he says is for no reason. And him coming and saying that, not helpful to Michigan, but I don't think he cares. Now, secondly, we've been monitoring now for 6 months the whole, on the NCAA website, there's like a bar graph of Michigan or infractions for all the different schools. It's like a dashboard. It's a dashboard for all the investigations, and the Michigan dashboard's really interesting. This is all public record. You remember, Buckeye Scoop. Yeah, this is publicly available, but you can go and look at the status of all the investigations that have gone, through the infractions committee and then on to through enforcement, through negotiated settlement, et cetera, et cetera. And there's a couple things that are striking about the Michigan. One, there's multiple Michigan. There's the Cheeseburger Gate one, and it talks about the timeline on that and how it got ultimately resolved. But on the ongoing investigation with Michigan, this has been fast. This has been less than 300 days that's going on the Michigan thing, and that's quick. So people can talk about how slow the NCAA is, but they're moving quickly. And two, they have different updates that kind of go along with the Michigan investigation, and the delays in the Michigan investigation were when we had told you about how they were expanding it for newly found information that was not provided by Michigan. and secondly, communications that were improperly withheld by Michigan, and that's what it said. It actually uses the word improperly withheld. So, you go through all these investigations, you go through the comments, and you see all the things that every one of them is, uh, self-reported by institution, worked on resolution, cooperative, reached final resolution. Michigan's the only outlier that's out there where it talks about lack of cooperation, withholding of evidence, improper withholding of communications, and that's again, this is all there for you to read in black and white. So this isn't Nevadabuck and Kirk talking about the hammer and oh nothing's going to happen. This is all in black and white on the thing. You can read it for yourself. You can go to, if you're a member of Buckeye Scoop, just click the link and turn it in it. But it was striking to me as I'm reading as I'm kind of reading through these updates, as I'm going through this, because uh, this has been a quick investigation, and Michigan has been delaying this thing all the way along and not cooperating, and that is ultimately going to be their undoing when this whole thing reaches resolution.
Something I want to ask you, and this is something that we've talked about offline. We've probably talked about on here. Do you think Jim Harbaugh kind of trash talking the NCAA? I mean, part of it is because he's kind of out of their reach at this point, but also like to me, you've talked to me a lot about like successor syndrome, and a lot about the fact that Ward Manuel is a guy who literally made him take a 50% pay cut, offered him an extension that he quote unquote said would make him the highest paid coach in college football. But it also had a lot of language that it basically had a poison pill in it, where if something like this happened, the money all goes away. Do you think, again, that he's getting back at Ward Manuel? Because again, he's not making it easier on Michigan by coming. Because again, if I was him and I lived in Los Angeles and I made $100 million deal, I literally I wouldn't even acknowledge it. I'd say, hey, this is my past. I'm done. I wouldn't make a snide comment, a dumb comment. Because I genuinely think, like, it's like if I had you locked in a cage with Brock Lesnar in a UFC fight, and I'm the guy outside the cage, I'm like the ring guy, and I'm talking trash to Brock Lesnar, like, that doesn't help you, making him, not that it matters, but it's like making him very angry is a very stupid thing to do. And I feel like, when you're antagonizing the NCAA and saying that they stole money from kids or whatever, like, they had this big verdict. Like, I think that is, I genuinely think that he wants Ward to get fired. That's kind of how I feel. Am I off base? Am I close? What are your thoughts on that?
I think he wants to take everybody down. I think he wants to take Ward Manuel down. I think he wants to take the school down. I think deep down in his soul, he does not want to see Sherrone Moore succeed, because the worst thing for him to happen would be Sherrone Moore to reel off multiple national championships or something like that. He wants to be remembered as the golden age, the one shining moment for Michigan football. And as soon as I left, everything went to heck. I mean, that's where Jim Harbaugh's at, and it's playing out in real time. I mean, if that was true, you know what he would do? He would do exactly what he's doing right now. He would talk BS to Brock Lesnar while I'm in the cage with them, and antagonize them and keep poking at the bear, poking at them, and daring them to do something. That's not helpful to Michigan. If you're a Michigan fan, man, I'd be like, what in the world is this guy doing? This is our guy. This is the guy we were going to have back as the captain and the honorary thing. And this guy is not helping your cause. He didn't help your cause when he was here. He's not helping your cause when he's gone. And I've never felt more firmly in my conviction that Michigan is going to face the most severe sanctions. I may even be upping my belief regarding what they're going to be, because this stuff is just not helpful, for them, what he's doing, and their lack of cooperation, their lack of candor, and actively impeding the investigation. I mean, I've never seen anything like it. I mean, this brings back, echoes of Pony Excess and the whole thing at SMU. I mean, that's the only thing that's literally anything like this investigation. I don't think anybody at the NCAA has ever seen anything like it. I've never seen anything like it before, and Michigan's going to pay dearly because of it.
Yeah, I agree with you. Like again, I don't understand their stance. Again, I don't understand how there isn't somebody in the board of trustees who's grabbing these guys by the throat and saying, stop antagonizing the people that are literally, you have to make the decision for our program. And again, their arrogance has been breathtaking, from the bet thing to the, Jim Harbaugh, the way he acts, to the way Connor Stalions acts. Like, I'm like, dude, like, you're really gonna come out here and make a documentary for like, they couldn't find some donor to give him $100,000 and offset what he would have made on this Netflix thing, because I didn't think that helped him, because they let a lunatic into the program, and a guy that was obsessive, and a guy that's going to rain down hellfire basically because he was trying to get on the fast track to coaching. And again, I've said a lot of times, I emphasize with him, because the guy literally was, there's been a lot of young coaches. I was that young coach one time where I was like, man, how can I get to the big seat? How can I get on in the main table? Like, whatever. But there's a process to do it, and sometimes it's got to be who you know. Sometimes the right guy has to get a job, whatever. But he, like, super tracked it, and he said, well, I'm going to just steal signs. And like I said, I can see the slippery slope he went down, where he started picking them legitimately, and then he got a little off to the side, and then it turned dark, and he started having people go out and scout it and video it and send it on your iCloud, and I'll upload it and go through it, and then I'll go through it with, and again, those coordinators want to be head coaches. I mean, Mike McDonald is literally a head coach in the NFL now, because he was so good at Michigan for that 1 year. Goes to Baltimore with John Harbaugh, and then now he's the head coach of the Seahawks. So he was the first guy to benefit from the sign stealing, and they won the game up in Ann Arbor, Aiden Hutchinson's year. So yeah, it's really fascinating. Well, to switch gears onto Ohio State, Ryan met with the media, so did Chip, and kind of the same stuff. But Chip's pretty, Chip is from the Urban Meyer school of telling you what he really feels, and again, I like that. Like, he said he was upset with how he called the game. He seemed kind of surly, which was great. Again, I said that the Akron game was perfect for me, because the number one thing is nobody got hurt. Number two thing is, we blew them out. Number three thing is we didn't play very good. So we left a lot of meat on the bone. So to me, that's perfect. If you play great against Akron, then it's a lot harder to beat guys down. But when you play like crap and you still win by 46 points, like, I think that's good. And again, there were a lot of good things that showed up on film. Like, again, I've rewatched it like 5 times now. Nevada, we talk a lot about the captains have to have senior years. And Jack Sawyer was the best player in my mind on defense. He didn't get player of the game. Lathan Ransom did, because he had the touchdown. Jack was he was a force. He didn't get a sack, but he hit the quarterback about 8 times and killed him. And I thought Trey Henderson, again, it's hard when you're a running back, because you're going to get limited touches in a game like this, and then you're going to get even more limited touches when you have Quinshon Judkins. So he probably had about a quarter or a third of his normal workload. But I thought those are the 2 best guys on the field. And again, I might be crazy, and I know JJ's awesome, and I know Will Howard was great, but I thought Trey looked fantastic. What were some of your thoughts and some of the guys that you thought really stood out from the game after we've rewatched it a few times?
Well, I mean, the Trey thing's always interesting, because it's like, it's kind of an old story where it's like, hey, the running game really struggled. Oh, hey, Trey went for 8 yards per carry. Hey, the running game really struggled. Hey, Trey's averaging 6.2 yards per carry per his career. So it's like, it seems like everybody struggles but Trey for some reason, and somehow some of the plays were magically called there for him. But no, I thought Trey was terrific. Yeah, I think Chip, like, it was funny because I watched the Boston College game last night against Florida State, and I thought Bill O'Brien called a brilliant game, like an absolutely brilliant game. And I would contrast that to Chip. I don't think Chip called a great game. I know Chip can be better than that. And like you said, the good thing about Chip is he is a lot like Urban Meyer, and he calls it as he sees it. And he wasn't great. But do I think he'll be better? Yeah, I know he'll be better. He'll learn from it. He'll learn from what he did wrong, because he is a master player. But I didn't think he was terrific against Akron, and I can't wait to see him be better. But no, for the players, it just the game, when you rewatch it and when you talk to the people at Ohio State, when you go through the grades and just see how they graded the thing. I mean, a guy like Will Howard, when you talk to the fans, after the game, I think people were they were pretty much in tune that Will was an upgrade or good, but there's a sizable portion of our fan base that didn't think so. That they're like, oh, Kyle McCord was way better, and this and that, and Willman. I mean, Will was player of the game. He was a champion, So it's like guys, I don't know what you're watching or whatever it is or what your expectations are on this stuff, but it doesn't always show up exactly on the stat sheets. But for a quarterback, if you go 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, no fumbles, void sacks, put them all in good spots. That's a winning performance. For Jack, didn't have great sacks, but like you said, hit the quarterback a bunch, was creating havoc. That's a winning performance as well. So, no, I didn't think the game was great, but I didn't think, I didn't think the players were as bad as some thought. Except I thought our linebacking, even on review, our linebacking wasn't great. It just wasn't great. Now, there's lots of reasons for it. We can debate whether they're reasons or whether they're excuses. First game starting, we're missing Cody Simon, the guys are playing out of position, all valid reasons. But our linebacker play wasn't good, and it needs to be better, and it needs to be better this week because Western Michigan does some interesting things to challenge the linebackers, put them in interesting spots. And, we need both those guys, especially I don't know if Cody's going to go this week or not. For me, if I have anybody that's got anything lingering, I'm sitting them. You've got a week off next week. You've got a chance to basically get, 2 more weeks of full rest for guys. I would do it. But if he's back, great. But if he's not, then CJ and Sonny need to be better. And if they're not, then, man, it's Arvell Reese and Gabe Powers time, and let's get it on. But we need production out of our linebackers.
I talked to somebody today, man, and they swear by Arvell Reese. They say he is the guy. He's been incredible in camp, and he's a thumper. And he's got a different disposition when he gets to the ball. He's more in sync. Again, I think, and I mean this sincerely, some people kind of get pigeonholed based upon their recruiting rankings. I know that he was a 4-star-ish type guy, but he's playing like a 5-star. I mean, you could flip the stars with him and CJ Hicks, and you look at what one looked more natural. I thought it was overall. Again, we've written, about CJ and what his talent is to get to the quarterback. His talent is to blitz. He is not big enough to be a defensive end and pass rush consistently, but as a blitzing linebacker, that's where he can be a force. And he, again, PFF, which you guys can say, PFF had like Mike Norvell is the 5th best coach in college football. So take everything they have with a humongous grain of salt. But that being said, he was like 88% pass rush, like 5th highest in the Big Ten. So again, you got to glean some confidence from him being able to get to the quarterback. Now in pass protection, or excuse me, in coverage, he is a disaster. And again, his instincts aren't where they need to be. I thought Sonny struggled, but Sonny, it's tough on Sonny because he goes through all of camp being a will linebacker, and then Cody's out. And he has to be the Mike linebacker, and he has to make the calls. He has to use the radio. And again, I do not know how much he did that in camp. Again, I don't know if there's ever a period where sometimes Urban would take hey, Jack Mewhort's out for a play, put in Taylor Decker as a true freshman, or hey, this guy's out, or this guy his shoelace broke, or this guy rolled his ankle, put in this guy with the ones, or whatever. And again, that was something that I said that I loved about the virus that the O-line had, is it forced them to play Austin Seyerveld with the first team. They had no choice. And he had to play first team left tackle, first team left guard. And he hung in there. And I thought he was fine. I'm going to break down the Trey play, which I loved. This is the best play of the game for me. And again, I know I'm old school and, I'm dumb and I love physicality and that kind of thing. But I love physical running backs. I love guys that are nasty. I've had a hit like this before where I hit a guy in the bowl game versus Oklahoma State where you just decleat a guy. You feel like right here, you literally can see it's like a ghost, it's like a ghost, like little eyes and stuff. Like his soul is leaving his body right now. It's going that way because Trey is an explosive dude, gets under him. And this is just perfect. And again, there's a lot of good on this play. They only you highlight Trey because that's the explosion, but these guys are running a 5-man pressure where, this is actually really interesting. So they drop both defensive ends here. So this kind of bogs up the tackles, and so the D tackles are both contained guys, and then they run like this little mix blitz where it's like here. So he's first, he's second, and then this guy, the safety, enters third. We used to call this Falcon. So this is a pretty. This is not day one stuff. This is very interesting stuff. And so there's a lot of good here. So, Austin Seyerveld is kind of in no man's land. So he actually comes back over here, kind of breaks the rule book. He does kind of like a Zach Martin thing and tries to go find some work, which is good. He goes and finds someone to block because, if Seth McLaughlin is engaged on this first backer and they can't switch it, and Jimmy Simmons is on him, that he's going to find work, which is great. Jelani Thurman, this is also great. He's scanning inside to try to find where everything's going. To try to help. Now, Trey kills this guy. So obviously there's not much work, but this is excellent pass protection. Now I know that it's, obviously we've got huge numbers advantage. It's 5-on-7. We have 7 protectors, but we still get everything picked up. Trey's phenomenal. I like Seyerveld's awareness there. So again, like when you go back and look at the minutia of the plays, like there's a lot of good stuff. And again, obviously, like I said, that'll be the first play that they show on the NFL draft highlight when Trey, like again, my dream is that Trey gets drafted by the Kansas City Chiefs in the first round, last pick of the first round, and he gets to play with Mahomes. And then all of a sudden you've got a guy like that next to Mahomes. Because again, that's like, if he goes somewhere that's got an elite offense, then he's a first-round running back in fantasy football because he's that good. He can catch the ball. And when he can pass protect like that, that's what an owner that's got a $60 million quarterback wants. He wants a guy, that's what I want my running back to do. He's not scared of getting his nails dirty. Because, again, that's not every guy we've had. Like Ezekiel was an elite pass protector, which is why he vaulted to the top of the first round. J.K., who was a very productive running back, was a terrible pass protector. And a lot of it's because he's just small, But Trey, he's bigger, but he's explosive and he's sturdy. And again, like I love everything about Trey. There aren't 5 guys that are running backs that I'd take over him in our history, which I know that's gaudy, but that's how much I think of this kid. Like he is an absolute war daddy. And he's tough as nails, and again, has he had terrible injuries? Yes. But I really think that he's trying to put it all on the field and have kind of like a Jahmyr Gibbs type weapon impact, because that's what he is. He wants to be like a lot of these running backs that they're hip to the game. And again, this is one of the good things about NIL is they all have agents, is they want to be marketed as a weapon and not a running back. Because when you're just a running back, they take you out of the first round, your second round pick. There wasn't a first round running back this year. The first guy was Jonathan Brooks from Texas. So I think that Trey and Quinshawn, and honestly, after week 1, I think Trey's in the lead, didn't get the touchdown. So now would be a good time to bet, anytime bet Trey Henderson for a touchdown, because you can best believe that like Ryan and Chip are not going to, if they have Quinshawn on last week, when it comes to goal line time, I would think they're going to put Trey in. Now, again, could be crazy. Don't put your mortgage on it, but that's just something that I know how touches are distributed. And I used to sit in the staff room when Urban would have his little tick sheet and he'd say, okay, we got to get Carlos Hyde this many, and we got to get Devin Smith this, and whoever. Like he'd go down the list. Braxton needs this many carries, and that's how they do it, And we haven't gotten this guy a touchdown. And now again, in the flow of the game, could that all go out the window? Sure. If Quinshawn busts a 75-yard touchdown, sure. But if they get down there, I'd bet a lot that Trey's going to be the guy that's in there so that he can hit pay dirt. Because again, he's the captain. He's the senior. Quinshawn got the first one. I think Trey's going to get the next one. Nevada, any thoughts on that? I'm going to switch over to my boy Jack.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good insight. I think you look at the wide receivers and you see JJ with 2 and Carnell with 1, but Emeka didn't get 1. So I was like, I wonder if Emeka will get 1 this week. Yeah, bet the Trey Henderson and Emeka parlay, both to score touchdowns. I think that's probably a good, smart use of your money, and things could certainly break that way this weekend.
Yeah, you can call me Chip Kelly Poppy. That'll be my new name. But I just think that when you've got like someone like that, like who's been a good soldier, good captain, like, dude, you want to get him, like, you don't want him to go 2 games against MAC teams without scoring a touchdown. You want him to kind of, it's going to be hard for one of them to win the Doak Walker because they're going to be splitting carries. But, again, you want your captain to hit the pay dirt because, again, it's a good feeling, and like same with the Mecca, like our 2 offensive superstars, who are captains didn't score, and our freshman did, and our new running back. And again, that's fine. Like, again, I'm not a guy who's like, okay, I'm sure Trey, when he knew Quinshawn was coming, knew that he'd take some of the goal line work, but just just a thought, again, I've been in those rooms and I know how the egos are, and it is what it is. So here's Jack again. This first one's a little grainy, but again, he long arms this tackle and he bends the edge, and he looks so much quicker than he did last year. I mean, the analytics, I swear to God, I got this from the Woody Hayes today. Literally, the ball was out in 1.6 seconds on average. So, I mean, that is almost impossible to get home. And we still had like 4 or 5 sacks, whatever it was. I know JT had one, Caleb Downs had one, but these guys knew they couldn't hold up versus these ends. And Jack, I mean, this is dominating right here. I apologize, it's a little grainy here. This tackle is in kind of never land. Like, this is a terrible set, but Jack feels it and he hits a nasty spin. And again, this is a very, very difficult spin. And again, this is a millisecond away from, being a sack fumble, because I mean he'd be hitting him right in the hand. That ball is going to be flying out. So there's another disruptor. And then here's another one where again this is kind of the easiest one, just because this is a misdirection, and this guy doesn't even shade him at all. So this is just go run and kill the quarterback. But again, that's how close he was to getting, like 3 pressures. And again, I know it's like horseshoes and hand grenades, like close doesn't count when you're counting sacks, but that's kind of where we're at. And so I thought Jack was fantastic. I thought JT looked great. I think it bodes well. I know for a fact these guys are basically being unleashed. And again, I loved the D-line rotation. I love seeing Kenyatta out there. I love seeing Caden Curry. I love seeing Hero Canoe, Caden McDonald. I love seeing Jack and JT play 3 technique in the rush man package and put Caden and Kenyatta on the edge. I like all that stuff. Like, again, I thought that our rotation last year was terrible, but I blame Kenyatta and Caden Curry because they weren't good enough, or they didn't make the staff think that they were good enough to play. I mean, you have to force the staff to play you. So again, I have no bones again with Caden Curry or Kenyatta, but like, I've been in those rooms, and trust me, in the perfect world, you're saying, man, I got to get Caden Curry 20 snaps. I got to figure out a way. We got 60 on this side and 60 on this side. I got to get Kenyatta 25 snaps and keep Jack fresh and keep JT fresh. And, playing D-line is no joke. And again, when you play it with no rotation, it's terrible. So, but I love what Jack did. I loved what a lot of these guys did. I think that the linebackers were probably the biggest question mark for a variety of reasons. But again, I think Arvell Reese could start this week. I mean, that's just little birdies have told me. But, he was much more productive than CJ. But, CJ's he got figured out. I mean, that was the thing, is like they had a situation where Cody got scratched, and they're like, well, who's going to play Mike? Is it going to be CJ, or is it going to be Sonny? So they moved Sonny to Mike, and, Sonny's got to do the communication. And that was, an adventure, just because, again, I was in the stadium watching Sonny, and he's like this, and he's like, saying, bring it back again, bring it back in, and trying to hear it. And he clearly wasn't comfortable with it. So, but when you go all camping, you're not calling it because Cody's calling it, in the huddle when you're making the front calls and adjustments, like that's a different ball of wax, because Sonny's just trying to figure out how to play linebacker, let alone run the whole defense. And that's why, Cody getting back will be gargantuan, I think, for Sonny's production, because Sonny's not ready to run the defense yet, but Cody is. Any other thoughts on the linebackers, Nevada?
No, just, I mean, yeah, I want to see Cody back. I want to see what how much of a difference it makes. But I was just really glad with the rotations. I was glad that you're seeing guys like Edric Houston make a play in his first thing, and Mitchell Melton, and guys, because we'd heard all offseason that Ryan Day had made a commitment to go deeper on the bench, and he had told agents that, he had told players that, he had told parents that they were going to do it. And they sure did. So I even though it's a 46-point game, and even though it's Akron, we hadn't seen enough of that last year, and I was really glad to see it, because we've got a lot of talent, a lot of young talent on defense, and the only way they get better is with meaningful reps, and getting those reps out there like they did. I thought they made the most of it, and I thought it really boded well for the future.
If we get out to a fast start and we're up by 5 touchdowns or whatever, are there things you would change on the rotation? Are there players you want to see this week that we didn't see last week? Are there players that you think deserve more snaps that they need to have an uptick or a downtick? If you're the head coach and you're sitting in the staff room and you've got Jim Knowles right here and you got Chip Kelly right here, and you're saying, hey, this guy needs to play more, this guy needs to play less, are there guys that you would name? Are there guys like at the top of your head you're like, man, I wish I could have seen more from this guy?
Julian Sain and James Peoples.
My God!
But again, and I'm not trying to be that's not being Mr. Mean.
You're literally living in my head. That's why I laughed.
Yeah, I'm just answering the question, and that's who I'd go. That's who I'd go with, because I want to see more of those guys, and I want to see what they can do. And invariably when you play a position like that where only one guy plays at a time, that means other people aren't playing, and that's unfortunate, and that's just. It's like goalie in hockey or kicker in football. I mean, there's a lot of positions where it's only one guy. And I'd like to see Julian Sain get out there and spin it. And, and I'd like to see more James. I think James Peoples is going to be a future star at Ohio State, and I want to see him carry the ball more. But Ohio State's got to do their part too and take care of business. And last week was a little wonky because we had two defensive scores. So when that happens, you don't have the ball as much, because now all of a sudden you're kicking off. The other team's got the ball and they'll do their 6.5-minute, 19-yard drive and then punt it back to you, and then it doesn't leave a lot of time for mouths to feed. But yeah, Sand and Peoples is where I'd go.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that, and again, I understand, for the first time in a long time why they kept the O-line in, because the O-line started off slow, and again, these guys missed a lot of camp, so the cohesion really isn't to where they need it to be. So I get leaving those guys in until the second to last drive, but I want to see George Fitzpatrick, I want to see Luke Montgomery, I want to see Padilla, I want to see if we can get anything out of Zen. Zen's getting a little older now, but it's like, those twos, I mean, Luke Montgomery was a guy that, literally preseason, spring practice was, penciled in to start potentially at right guard. He was initially the favorite to start at right guard. And now, you look at it now and, Tigra is the right guard. And then you look at the left side and you've got Austin Seyerveld, who's past Luke, on the depth chart. So again, I'd like to see what we can get out of Luke. I don't know if he's a center. He's a tweener, and again, I think Luke's got a ton of ability, ton of talent, really nice kid, but he's a kid that, he's not tall enough to be a great tackle. And I don't know if he's strong enough to play inside. Like, again, he's a big athletic guy. You wish he was 3 or 4 inches taller, because then he'd be kind of a prototype tackle. But, again, this is coming from me. There were people who thought I should be a guard, and I was much more comfortable playing tackle. I like space. I like going against, smaller guys that are faster, because I was athletic. I was quick. So I could match up in pass protection. Inside, I mean, you have to be sturdier, thicker base, like a guy like Nick Mangold. So I think it's going to be interesting to see if we get more out of those guys. Because again, you got to always build towards the future. But again, and then Donnie's going to show up, in this week, next week, or I think at the latest Michigan State. He's practicing. He's running around a little bit. He's getting some individual work in. But again, I just worry about his conditioning. Again, it's not that he's a fat kid. It's just that he literally, when you don't play football, man, running on the treadmill and running in the water treadmill and doing the Stairmaster and stuff, it doesn't simulate playing a game. Doesn't simulate football. Again, and this is from a guy who, like, I had to miss time when I broke my foot. Tressel gave me the week off. He didn't give me the week off, but I didn't practice Iowa week. Got treatment, worked out in the weight room, did conditioning, just because we were trying to mitigate the pain, because it was the front of my foot was broken, and it was hard. It sucked, but just kind of is what it is, and he's got to kind of manage that. Got a couple super chats. Anything else you want to add to that? I mean, dig into some of these.
No, I think that's a good summary. Good week, and I like the trajectory into Saturday. I think the Bucs are in a good place. Excited about it.
All right, I totally agree. Paul Lewis, my man, I appreciate you. Thank you for the 100. I hope you're doing great. Hi, guys in Wrenches, Nevadabuck. What is your most memorable game at the shoe? Mine is Archie against North Carolina. That is, wow, that's going back. Nevada, do you have a most memorable game in the shoe?
I mean, so many. I'd have to go with. I'm going to go with. I mean, 2006 Michigan, man. I'm telling you what, it's just hard. It's just hard to. I mean, it's just hard to beat that one, man. I mean, from everything from, what was it? Bo that died the night before, or was it somebody died the night before?
No,
was it Bo?
Bo Schembechler died the night before.
I mean, it was Bo dying the night before, 1 versus 2, 3:30 start. I mean, just everything was this. Then this wasn't in the days of the expanded playoff where, if you lose seeding or something like that. This was for, you lose and you freaking go home. And I mean, I can't imagine. I mean, again, but there's been so many great games. 2002 Michigan, 2005 Texas. I mean, we can go down the list, but 2006 Michigan for me was the one. If I think of one that I'm going to think about on my deathbed, that's going to be the game I'm going to think about.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that sucks about that game is it always gets tied to the stupid Florida game. I mean, because if we win that Florida game, that's probably the greatest Michigan game. Ohio State. It is the greatest Ohio State Michigan game of all time for my money, because it was the only 1 versus 2 game. I mean, I don't know how you can top that. And it was a tight game. Michigan was legit. Again, that Michigan team had Chad Henne, played 15 years in the league at quarterback, and Jake Long was the first pick, and Manningham and Lamar Woodley and David Harris played like 10 years in the league as captain of the Jets. Leon Hall. I mean, the hype around that game is something I don't think we'll ever experience again, especially in the new format of the Big Ten, where you could potentially play Michigan again in the Big Ten title. Not this year when they're actually good, I'm talking, or in the playoffs again. So I don't know if we'll ever have a game of that magnitude again, because I remember they were counting that game down like weeks before it actually happened. There was like a ticker where it was like, we had to play, Northwestern and Illinois and, turd sandwiches all the way down the line. And I just remember like they had like Ball State, and, it was kind of like there were games in our schedule that was like, once we got through Penn State, we knew that we were going to be undefeated playing those guys. And once they got through, I forget if it was Penn State or whoever it was, we knew that they would be undefeated. Because they went out to South Bend and just destroyed Notre Dame. I remember that because Woodley scored a touchdown, and I think Notre Dame was like preseason number 2 or 3 in the country because they had everybody back from the team that we played against. They had Brady back, and Michigan went out there and just violated them. And so, like, leading up to that game, it was like, you want to talk about like anxiety and stress and dear God, we better not lose this game. Like it was that one. Cause like, oh my God. And it's funny. I remember talking to Jake Long about it when we were at the Dolphins, and like, he talked about, what was it like after that game? I was like, dude, I just, I was so excited to win, because it's exciting to win, but the relief of winning is almost as great as the excitement, because, like the whole city is counting on you to win that game. And, our defense, and I love our defense, did not have their best game that night. So I was like, we better score 50 points. And we had to score 42, and they gave up 39. So, that was one where, of all the times where I've cracked on our offense for sucking, like versus Texas in 05 and Penn State in 05 when I got hurt, we scored 10 points. Like, that was one where we actually bailed the defense out. And our defense was really good that year. They had James Laurinaitis and Vernon and Malcolm. And so, and they'll be the first to say it. I mean, because I've talked to James about it. Like, we helped them. And again, there's no greater feeling on when on your side of the ball, you kind of help carry. Now it gets old when it's one side always carrying the other side. And that's where, there was a lot of times, in the Jim Tressel era where our defense was just demonstrably better than our offense was, like in 02, 03, 04, 05, there were times, but when we could actually bail them out for once, that felt great, because I was like, this is for being sorry about the Texas game that we lost the year before, where we kicked 5 field goals and Vince Young beat us. But yeah, I don't think that there's any game that's close to that. I mean, the more interesting question that I would have for you is there a second one? Because that one is almost like locked in for anybody that was at that game. Is there a second game? Again, because some of the best games I went to were ones that we lost, like the USC game in 09. The Texas game in 05 is the best environment I've ever experienced at the Horseshoe, because that place was electric that day because of how good. Because, I mean, that Texas team is, in my opinion, probably the best team that ever came into the Horseshoe. They won the national title. They beat that USC team. They were just really good. And we choked against them, which is what makes it even worse. But what would be the second game for you, Nevada, that you attended?
I mean, Penn State, Ohio State.
The 17 one?
The Saquon Barkley game. Yeah. I mean, it's hard to beat that one, man. That was about as good as it gets. I mean, 37-36 or something like that. I mean, what a great college football game. And, JT Barrett's finest hour right there. And, that was a fun one. That was a fun one.
Yeah. Like that was, it was weird, because I don't know if it's like, if the team spent or what it is. Because, they had that letdown at Iowa. And it reminded me of the letdown we had against Florida, where we just sucked. Like, I don't know if it's like we blew blew everything on the one game. Like, we spent all of our chips on one game and we laid an egg. I don't know what it was. Because, like, again, it was like the same team didn't show up to the next game. Now, I know that we had the 40-day thing or whatever, but, like I loved, like, JT's like one of my favorite players of all time. Like, and obviously no one's going to ever top Troy for quarterback, but JT's like right there for me, just because he's such a leader. He's such a warrior. He's so tough. And he's like the greatest kid in the world. Like, I mean, he's going to end up being an offensive coordinator in the NFL. And I mean, he'll be, a leader, in coaching. Cause I mean, he's with the Lions right now. He's in a great organization that's got, a couple of really hot names in coaching searches, especially their OC is a really hot name. So, JT is going to make a ton and do a lot of great stuff as a coach in the National Football League. So again, I loved it because that was like a signature moment for JT, who again I think is one of the greatest players in school history, and that's just, is what it is. Because that was one that was fun. The cocoa was flowing. That was a great night. I mean, for me, I hate saying the Texas game because we lost it, but like that was one night I don't think there's ever gonna be an environment like that, because that was just like superstars on superstars. But again, it is what it is. Ben G, thank you for the 20. Thank you for being an ultra member. And again, thank you again, Paulus. Kirk in Nevada, Dylan Stewart was discussed on the board. Oh yeah, it was. Seems like NIL has improved since then. Can you elaborate on how and talk about how recruits and portal kids set an NIL market, and what causes OSU to cut bait? Nevada OH. Do you want me to start on this, or do you want to start on it?
Nah, I'll let you start. NIL's your thing, man. You're Mr. NIL, so I'll let you do it.
I am. Well, I mean, like I say, like NIL got us Will Howard upgrade, Quinshon Judkins, Caleb Downs, like JJ Smith. So I mean, I love NIL because again, I always felt like when we would lose teams to Southern schools or teams that would pay kids under the table, it used to drive me nuts. And now we can match wits to them and actually pay kids legally. So again, I like it. I think that with every NIL kid, there's always a price, and there's always this law of unintended consequences where if a kid say David Sanders shows up and you pay him, a huge amount of money, and then he shows up and he doesn't play right away, he red shirts, or he might just stink, and you guys are on the hook for a ton of dough. That can really throw a monkey wrench in like the O-line room or the D-line room or whatever. So again, I think like when a guy comes and shows that he can play college football, like Dylan Stewart has proven that he's definitely can play college football. Those guys are a lot more attractive to me, like Caleb Downs. JJ is kind of a unicorn just because he's so intense and focused on football that nothing's really going to get in his way. And plus, you got to understand, like JJ's cousin is Geno Smith, who's been the starting quarterback for the Seahawks for like 3 or 4 years now. So it's not like that's his first dollar he's ever seen, and he doesn't know how people in the league act and what it takes. Because again, his cousin was a guy that a lot of people thought would be a top 10 pick, and he slid down to the second round on draft night to the Jets. But he's had a really nice NFL career. So I think that the NIL has improved because Ross Bjork is an absolute monster. And again, I talk to people very close to Ross Bjork, and I think Ross Bjork is a tremendous upgrade over Gene Smith from a fundraiser, because he's a fundraising machine. That was a quote I was told from people that I really trust, that have given a lot of money to the school, is he's a fundraising machine, and he really gets NIL. I've been very critical of Gene Smith because I thought we wasted 2 years trying to start Cohesion and trying to start 1870, and those both failed in a spectacular fashion. And the foundation is kind of like the last. They've raised a ton of money. They've gotten a lot of the roster retention money. They now have the 50-50 drawing at the Horseshoe, which is, when you're trying to figure out who is Ohio State trying to push as the top collective, just follow the money. Like the Ohio State literally did a 50-50 deal this past Saturday at the game, and 50% of the proceeds go into the foundation. And 2 years ago, it went to Cohesion. Last year, it went to 1870. Those guys both flopped in spectacular fashion, didn't raise any money. They fired almost all their staff. I mean, Cohesion doesn't exist anymore. 1870 fired, their most of their staff. Their most notable staff members have been fired. I think they're trying to recalibrate, but they're like a mouse versus, a tiger at this point when it comes to NIL. So I think that we wasted time, and we should just go behind the foundation in the beginning. And they've stepped up. Again, they stepped up. They got JJ. They got Caleb Downs. Caleb Downs has an exclusive deal with the foundation, so they write all of his checks. And again, if we're going to be in this world where kids are going to get paid, and again, I think that the kids should get paid to play. And I know people are going to throw tomatoes at me and say I'm an idiot and whatever, but if Ryan Day is making $12 million a year and Keenan Bailey is making $600,000 a year, then I think that some of these players who are really good and actually have an impact on the game, and I'm not saying Ryan does it, but I'm saying Keenan Bailey absolutely has no impact on the game. Like if Keenan Bailey didn't go to the game, no one would know that he wasn't even there. If JJ Smith doesn't go to the game, then people are like, where's JJ Smith? Oh my God. You know, or Will Howard doesn't go to the game, or Caleb Downs. Like those are major impact players on the field. So I think that, you know, you have to be careful. And I think that, you know, there's some of these kids that think that they're worth much more than they are. And again, there's some schools that are desperate that will pay these kids what they're asking. And again, Vernell Brown III, who I think is a fantastic player and would be an absolute monster in Chip Kelly's offense, literally went to Florida. And I know his dad went there, and I know that his, you know, grandpa went there, but they offered him a huge deal too. So now he's looking at that place, and that coach is fired as fired could ever be. So he's not going to even know his coaches. But, you know, if you just want to go chase the money, that's great. You know, Ohio State likes to sell development. Personally, like I like a mix of both. You know, like JJ kind of got the best of both worlds. He got a great NIL deal, plus he's going to get developed by Brian Hartline. So, you know, I think that some of these kids are foolish because they go chase a thing and then, you know, they end up at Florida and they don't even know who their head coach is going to be when they show up in January. So, but I think that we, you know, we cut bait on guys, and I think that you have to kind of have spacers. Like I think like with the recruiting classes here, there was a time where we thought we were getting Jamie French and a time we were getting Vernell Brown, but you know, taking a kid like Bogdan Miller, who isn't going to cost nearly as much and has a ton of upside, I think is smart. And he's not going to cost you a fortune in NIL. And plus, you know, you're going to have Chris Henry Jr. and you're going to have Caden Dixon Wyatt and those types of guys. And, you know, the worst thing you could do is stack all these guys that you have to pay a bunch of money to. And then after a year, they transfer and go elsewhere. So I like our strategy on NIL. I don't like being held hostage by a kid. I think that sometimes we unfairly whip people because they miss on a recruit when in reality it doesn't make sense financially. Again, it's no different than like free agency. Like when there's some humongous free agent splash, some big signing, then he turns out to be a bust who was grossly overpaid and he gets cut after 2 years. Like, you know, initially there's, you know, you grab the headlines in the paper, but you know, was it really worth giving someone that kind of money and destroying, you know, being salary cap hell for a couple of years? I don't know. Nevada, Dylan Stewart was discussed on the board. Seems like NIL has approved since then. Can you elaborate on how and talk about how recruits and portal kids set an NIL market and what causes OSU to cut bait? Do you have anything else to add to that?
No, I just want to reiterate your point. I mean, Gene Smith, lots of big mistakes during Gene Smith's tenure, but I don't think probably the second biggest to cost us the national championship with his miscalculation with the NCAA was his refusal to embrace the foundation and his just open, you know, courting with cohesion and with 1870 when those guys were clearly not up to the task. And thank goodness for President Carter. Thank goodness for A.D. Bjork. We've upgraded across the board and we're in much better shape. But yeah, that was just so predictable. We called it at the time, and it wasn't that we were rooting against these guys. We saw the people that were involved, and we knew that they would not be able to raise the money. It's strictly a fundraising game, and you see when, you know, Oregon's got big hitters, and they've got you know Phil Knight and, you know, whomever else, you know, they're going to turn money, and we've got like some little intern from 1870 running around going, you know, hey, let's donate money here. It's just, it doesn't work. And I'm just so glad that Ohio State figured that out. And I like our NIL program. Our NIL program keeps us competitive with anybody. It doesn't mean we're going to set the market. Doesn't mean we're going to overpay for everybody. But it reduces the number of times when we're just getting completely outspent because we just don't have ammunition. We have ammunition. We just have to deploy it smartly.
Yeah, like I said, I've gone to the foundation events, and I wasn't stunned, but I was like, holy cow, there are some major business people here. Like, it wasn't just Brian Schottenstein and his friends running around. I mean, it was like the who's who of Columbus were in the building. And I was like, well, this is good, you know, because they're here. And again, like the, you know, I always kind of look at who's on the team, who do they know, what kind of network do they have, how can they kind of garner this stuff. And again, I saw it was on that team, and I was like, well, that's the one I'm picking. It's not even close. I look at their board of directors, and I know a lot of those guys, and I know what they do and how they support each other and what they're worth. And I'm just like, yeah, those guys are probably going to win. And it wasn't even close, you know. And when, you know, they tried to pawn, you know, Gene Smith tried to pawn the foundation off on basketball, and basketball did fantastic. And they gave 1870 football, and they it was an abject disaster. It couldn't have been any worse. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, why would we give the one that's got the most money basketball, when they've got 12 guys on the team, and football's got 110 or whatever, and we're like, we can't make rent. And I'm like, this is so stupid. So then they had to come, Gene had to come crawling back to the foundation, who stepped up to the plate, got us JJ, got us Caleb Downs. And again, through all the rhetoric that was put out, and again, this is part of the Ohio State machine when they tell all of the other websites to, hey, push cohesion and push 1870 and push all this and denigrate the foundation. Because again, I have receipts. I'm different. Because again, when they're all saying that, it's coming from the machine. It's coming from Ohio State. This isn't Kirk, crazy town Kirk here. This isn't Kirk went to happy hour. This is Kirk telling you the truth. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, well, okay, maybe these guys are making money from some unknown source, but I don't think they are. And again, I know, I get a pretty good idea about what's going on in terms of the payroll and who's paying what. And I was like, the numbers just don't add up. I mean, Nevada and I are numbers guys. We're just like, dude, again, we are a team. We want Ohio State to be good and competitive. There's nothing in the universe I care more about than Ohio State being good. Because again, you guys aren't going to care about Buckeye Scoop if the Buckeyes are 1-10, unless you want to figure out who the next coach is going to be. So again, I just want Ohio State to be good. I know a lot of the people at the foundation, they don't take a salary, they work really hard, and they invest their own money in it. So it's a thankless job. And to me, I think it's one of the hardest jobs in the world, because you're asking people to donate money to go get players that we can all watch and enjoy. So that's not an easy thing to do. So kudos to those guys, to Brian and Bill Lewis, because those guys are they're putting in work. And again, I'm happy. Ross Bjork wants to build a new Woody Hayes. Thank God. Ross Bjork put up a new Archie Griffin statue. Thank God. It's like Archie's only been, he hasn't played in 40 years and whatever, 45 years. And guess what? He finally gets a statue and finally dots it out. I mean, I wish Ross would have been here last year so that Trussell could have dotted the Youngstown State game, but it is what it is. All right, Cordero Jackson next for the 5. Take away the early interception and good field goal possession in the pick 6. Michigan would have won 16-10 or maybe lost that game. Michigan is trash. Nevada OH. I couldn't agree more. Like, I mean, they literally talked about orgy, and they talked about the 7th Tuttle, and then they ended up starting a walk-on. So you know that the quarterback room is an absolute disaster. Like, if you have to go to a walk-on, that's massive recruiting misses. And that O-line is bad. And Donovan Edwards averaged what in Nevada, like 1 yard a carry or something crazy. So like, I don't know.
He was like 11 carries for 27 yards or so. I don't even. It was bad. It was really, really bad.
Yeah, and the Longhorns are going to violate these guys. I'm just telling you, they're going to get by. They're going to get, because what's going to happen with Texas is they're going to throw it over the top of them, and they're going to control the game, and they're not going to be able to run the ball because they're going to be so far behind. And Texas's pass rush is going to kill these guys because their one defensive end is ultra legit, and it's going to be a problem for Michigan, especially when a quarterback isn't mobile. And again, if you play Orgy, I would run punt rush. I would run bear defense and dare him to try to throw it. Like I would run the Virginia Tech bear versus Alex Orgy and dare him to pass the ball. I'd run cover 0. Like, again, that was like what they did the first year when we had JT, and JT was a freshman and he didn't, he was figuring it out. And, that's what I would do against Orgy. And it would be an absolute bloodbath. Nevada, your thoughts on Michigan? Again, they said take away the early interception, the good field position, the pick 6, it would have been 16-10. And are you, I mean, the money line is at it was at like minus 270, which I feel like that is really light. I don't know if it's moved at all, but do you have a play on that one?
Yeah, I've got a huge future bet. Remember, I got Texas minus 2.5. So I mean, I could middle that right now and take that action away. But I mean, I max bet that at minus 2.5 over the summer. I told you guys that Michigan was overvalued. Michigan was going to be the team that underperformed, that disappointed against expectations. I was that's not my hate of Michigan speaking. That's just an analytical looking at it. Kind of they have a choice of money. No, but they have a choice between a walk-on quarterback and who can't move, and Orgy who can move but literally cannot throw the ball 10 yards down the field. So that's their two choices right now at quarterback. and a brand new offensive line. Yeah, their defense is good, but man, Fresno State was throwing the ball in their defense. You can throw the ball against Texas. I mean, against Michigan, and nobody spins it better than Quinn Ewers. So you're exactly right. They get up a couple scores and they have to start throwing the ball, and that could get really, really ugly. So yeah, I like my bet at -2.5, and feel that one's pretty safe.
Do you have a Dagestan Poppy play for tonight?
We have a chalky Dana White Contender Series thing. It's 4 big favorites all parlayed together. It's not a published pick. That's an unpublished
Got
pick.
it.
It's fights 2, 3, 4, and 5 tonight at Dana White Contender Series. All the favorites parlay together. So it's 4-person parlay. All the big chalk favorites.
Okay. Thank you, Dagestan Poppy, for making us rich again. Madamus Prime
Yes.
Entertainment. Thanks for the 5. Is it the Michigan Hawkeyes now or the Iowa Wolverines? What happens when you can't run or pass? Nevada OH. I think it's, I mean, they're kind of the same thing now, but I mean, I don't know if Michigan's defense is that great. I mean, again, like some of these guys, they're not living up to their preseason hype. Again, 9 days ago, I was told Florida State had the best defense in the country, best D line in the country, and I mean, those guys literally quit last night. Again, I don't know. I think Bill O'Brien is a hellacious coach because I mean, they absolutely just wore out. And Florida State quit. I mean, that was a team that literally quit at the end of that game. I mean, they ran for like 270 yards or whatever it was, and good God. And I think Michigan, these guys start getting down a little bit. They get housed a few times. Like, they got a couple really high draft picks on that D line and a really high corner. Like, are they still going to want to fight for the old blue? Because I'm like you, Nevada. I think they're going to get smoked this week. I think USC, I think Oregon, I think us. I mean, that's going to be pretty devastating on top of the nuclear storm that's coming this way. But what are your thoughts, Nevada? Michigan Hawkeyes, Iowa Wolverines. I mean, that'll be like, if there's ever a game to bet the under, oh my God, if those guys play, I don't even know if they play against each other, but that is the ultimate under bet. What are your thoughts, Nevada?
Yeah, those teams are really, really similar. I mean, you're talking about teams, and I agree with you. I don't think the Michigan defense is that great. I mean, Fresno State could absolutely throw the ball, and Fresno State is not a good football team, and they could absolutely throw the ball against Michigan. And we'll see. Hey, look, if Michigan goes out there and beats Texas this week, I promise you, I will give them my props. I'll be like, hey, that's a good win for them. That's a good win. Beating Quinn Ewers, beating Texas, I'm impressed. I take back the fact that I said you guys stink. And I will say that on the air if that happens. But if it doesn't happen, then I reserve the right to have an entire episode where all I do is rail on Michigan for stinking. So that's kind of my deal. That's my deal with the internet. Nevadabuck's deal. If they stink, I will call them out, and if they don't, I will give them 1 minute of props and then move on to the next topic.
I love it. Poohbeard 12, thanks for the deuce. Parker Fleming, best addition by subtraction ever. Yeah, I mean, like again, Parker was my intern, so I don't like to go over the top on a guy who's been fired, but it's like I have no idea what they were thinking, especially when you have a guy like James who could be an asset on the road recruiting sitting in your office. But Brandon Ennis is my favorite, other than Teddy, obviously, or Santonio. He's my favorite punt returner ever because Brandon is trying to manufacture touches for his livelihood right now. So he is not fair catching the ball. He is going to go get it, and he's going to go do something with it. And I thought he was electric returning punts. And again, that's the kind of thing I want. Like, I don't want a Mecca back there having to fair catch it and do nothing. And Mecca's already a made man. Like, Brandon is trying to eat. So he's literally back there, killing himself, trying to go make something happen. And I thought he was awesome. Nevada, your thoughts? Because again, I love when Brandon touches the ball because he's trying to do something with it. And again, he found a lot of hidden yardage by grabbing it and turning up and going and getting 15, 20 yards on returns. But what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I just, I don't want to be the old guy that repeats himself, but I really wish they put 2 guys back there. I really think, I mean, I wish they would do it. You saw what happened when he caught that one kind of line drive. They were kind of rolling out and kicking that kind of rugby style thing, and he caught that one on the fly, and he nearly housed it. If you have 2 guys back there, your chances of catching one of those on the fly goes up 50%. I don't understand why they don't. And I'm going to keep saying it. I know they listen to this broadcast. I'm going to keep saying it makes too much sense. Please put a second guy back there with Brandon, and let's bring the punt return came back as a weapon all of a sudden. And you've been talking about how the punt return's dead because of the sky kick and because of the rugby, which I understand all those things. And all of a sudden, when you have a dynamic returner back there, it comes back. So put two guys back there and let's do some damage on this thing.
Yeah, and the thing about when you do the two guys back is you essentially make a lead blocker. So like whoever doesn't get it gets to go pick off the first guy down. So that's one less guy you have to make miss. And it's one guy that frankly can't kill you. You know, if you're trying to catch something and the guy's, you know, if our gunners whiff and the guy gets loose, like your off return can go kill that guy, which is like that's what Santonio used to do with Teddy. And again, that was always, you know, then the next year we had, you know, Teddy and Gonzo, and those guys were excellent at it. So again, I love the two returning thing because I benefited literally from the two returning thing because one of those guys always got the ball and the other guy would always get a good block. So you could, you know, manufacture some yardage. All right, Nevada, we're going to run. Any final thoughts? We'll wrap the show.
No, just if you want to become a little bit more educated on the Michigan penalties, go to that NCAA dashboard. It lays it all out. It lays out the nice contrast between Michigan and these other schools. It also lays out literally every day, gives the number of days that it was within which portion of the process. So you can kind of see, you know, when things were filed, when things were presented, why things weren't happening quicker, et cetera, and you can contrast it to other schools. Really super educational. And when you read it, there's no way that you can read that and come away with any other conclusion other than, man, Michigan's in a lot of trouble. And that makes me happy.
It makes me very happy. All right, guys. Appreciate you guys as always. Thank you guys for kicking it with us. Per usual, again, another great show. Let me get this off the screen real quick. If you guys enjoy this content, please... If you guys enjoy this content, please leave us a like. Click subscribe. Also, click that little alert bell. Let's go. We are in season. Join BuckeyeScoop.com. That is where all of the action is right now. We appreciate you guys and all that you guys do for this show. If you guys enjoy this content, please leave us a like. Click subscribe. Also, click that little alert bell. Again, we appreciate all that you guys do to grow this channel. If you want to do something spectacular and really make our day, my day, your day, everybody's day, please consider signing up on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. It's completely free. Click on Buckeye Scoop, subscribe to the channel, leave us a 5-star review. Again, that helps us tremendously. A lot of you guys have done it recently, so thank you for that. Again, every little bit helps. Even if you don't listen to the audio version, it helps us tremendously. So consider doing that. It takes about 10 seconds, and you really help this channel out for absolutely, you know, for no money out of your pocket. So I appreciate you guys so very much. Again, thank you for all you guys watching all over the world. Shout out to my Southern Ohio boys, my people all over the country, all over the world. Thank you guys. The season's going to be amazing. So with that being said, thank you so much, Buckeye Nation. Thank you, Scoop family. I am going to talk to you guys tomorrow. Go Bucks.